Sitting $11 million in the red with a pass rush that ranked dead last in the league, posting a sub-32% pass rush win rate isn't just a bad look, it's a structural failure. We're operating with a paper-thin winning window right now. Everyone assumes Caleb Williams' rookie deal is a blank check, but the math proves otherwise. We're completely handcuffed by a $24.5 million dead cap trap. If Ryan Poles doesn't fix this edge rusher deficit immediately, we're burning the most critical years of this franchise. You can have elite quarterback play all day long, but if you can't put the opposing passer in the dirt, you're going home in January. We're going to break down the absolute ransom it would cost to trade for Myles Garrett and the brutal contract mistakes forcing our hand. But you gotta stick around until the end, because there's a very specific two-time Super Bowl champion hitting the market, a guy carrying a $4.5 million baseline who completely changes the financial math. He's the ultimate low-cost asset that actually bails us out of our own cap disaster. If you want real, unfiltered analysis on how the Bears manage this roster crisis, hit subscribe. We track the money and the film here, no fluff. The organization went down the offseason checklist, crossing off names, but that edge rusher spot remains a ghost town. Think about the market assets we chased. We were deadlocked from Max Crosby before he gets sent right back to Las Vegas over a surgically repaired knee. Bullet dodged? Maybe. But then we pivoted to Trey Hendrickson, and he ends up with the Ravens anyway on a massive $112 million free agent deal. Both of those doors slammed shut in our faces. But a third name just hit the radar. And this isn't just another guy. This one carries the kind of weight that shakes the whole league. We're talking about the absolute gold standard, the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He's trapped in a total mess over in Cleveland. Total front office dysfunction. When the Browns completely bypassed defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz to hire Todd Monken for their head coaching job, causing Schwartz to pack his office and literally resign in protest, the locker room lost its mind. The league's treating a formal trade demand from Myles Garrett as a very real, imminent threat. He hasn't said a single word publicly to kill the rumors either. Silence speaks volumes in this league. That Cleveland building is completely toxic right now. When a front office disrespects a coordinator like Schwartz to the point where he just walks out, you lose the alpha dogs on defense. It's just a fact. And when an elite edge rusher like Garrett wants out, you pick up the phone and run the numbers. So why is Sports Illustrated pointing straight at Chicago as the prime landing spot? Because on the surface, it looks like a perfect match. We've got Caleb Williams locked into his rookie deal. They call it the golden ticket. We've got a tightly squeezed winning window to stack this roster before his next contract completely changes our financial reality. The theory is our easiest path to a Super Bowl is right now, and Garrett fixes our biggest problem overnight. He just dropped 23.0 sacks last season, an all-time NFL single-season record backed by a monstrous 93.6 PFF pass rush grade while being double-teamed on over a quarter of his snaps. His raw, violent playstyle is custom-built for Soldier Field. But hold the phone, because the national media isn't telling you the whole truth about this rookie deal fantasy. They look at Caleb's contract and think we're swimming in cash. We aren't. Right now, the real-time over-the-cap numbers show Chicago is sitting roughly $11 million over the 2026 salary cap. If you want to bring in Myles Garrett and absorb his $20.4 million traded cap hit, it's not just about giving up massive draft picks. It demands immediate, brutal cap casualties just to make the paperwork legal. You also got to look at the brutal reality of the NFC North. This isn't a soft division anymore. We're dealing with heavyweights. Our rivals are already operating at peak levels or aggressively stockpiling talent. The gap between a playoff team and a couch potato in this conference is razor thin. Dropping Garrett into our defensive front doesn't just patch a hole, it violently shifts the balance of power in the entire division. But again, you have to weigh the absolute ransom it's going to cost. Cleveland is going to demand potentially 4 first-rounders, or a massive package of premium draft capital on top of the shedding major veteran contracts. The Bears have to sit down right now and figure out if bankrupting our future draft stock and cutting our own starters is worth the price of admission. But before we start dreaming about Garrett rushing the passer in navy and orange, we've got a massive fire burning right in our own defensive line room. We're dealing with a brutally expensive lesson from last offseason, and it's forcing Ryan Poles to make some ugly decisions up front. Not every move Ryan Poles and the front office made last offseason was a winner. Let's be real. If we're looking at the defensive line, there's one massive, flashing red light. It's easily the most expensive, catastrophic mistake of Ben Johnson's first year running the show in Chicago. The Bears handed over nearly $50 million to defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo on a 3-year deal. They banked heavily on the fact that he put up back-to-back productive seasons with the Colts. They figured he'd step into a bigger role here and just take over. That didn't happen, not even close. Odeyingbo barely saw the field. He played in exactly 8 games before a torn Achilles tendon in Week 9 completely ended his season. Before the injury, he gave us one single sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a disastrous 48.2 PFF run defense grade. That's it. And here's the kicker. His cap number for 2026 is sitting at a massive $20.5 million. Brad Gagnon over at Bleacher Report didn't hold back, calling the soon-to-be 27-year-old the absolute most overpaid player on our entire roster right now. 1 sack for $20 million. That's a catastrophic return on investment. That specific dead weight is exactly why the ledger is $11 million in the red right now. It's a masterclass in how not to construct a defensive line. Here's the brutal truth. Cutting Odeyingbo doesn't just do nothing for us. It actually makes the bleeding worse. I pulled the actual spot track numbers, and a pre-June 1 release triggers a sickening $24.5 million in dead cap. That means cutting him actively cost the Bears an extra $4 million on top of his original $20.5 million hit. It's a total dead money trap. This brutal math mathematically forces Poles to staple this massive liability to the roster, and it absolutely nukes any prayer of a trade market. We're stuck carrying him through 2026 no matter what the front office does this spring. That means if we want to fix his pass rush, we have to spend even more money to stack a guy right on top of him. He isn't entirely useless, though. He gives you some value on early downs, he's a decent run defender, and he can slide inside on 3rd and long to push the pocket a bit. But let's look at the actual numbers. This defense scraped together just 35 sacks last season. We lived at the bottom of the barrel in pass rush win rates and total quick pressures. So being a decent run defender falls completely flat when we desperately need a guy who can actually hunt the quarterback. That glaring gap is exactly why bringing in a guy like Kyle Van Noy makes a ton of sense right now. This is the 2-time Super Bowl champion I warned you about at the top of the video, the guy who changes the math. He's hitting free agency after 3 years with the Ravens, gearing up for his 13th season in the league in 2026. Just 2 years ago, the guy racked up a career-high 12.5 sacks. Sure, last year he dropped off, managing only 2 sacks over 15 games, but his entire career proves he's a highly effective situational pass rusher when used correctly. Aaron Leeming from Windy City Gridiron threw Van Noy's name out there as a rock-solid option. He fills a screaming need on the edge, and he won't cost us a fortune. Look at his recent baseline with Baltimore. He's sitting at roughly $4.5 million annually. But here's the reality check. Because of our current cap deficit, even this bargain still demands some serious roster restructuring before we can sign the paperwork. We're broke, remember? Still, bringing him in isn't a luxury. It's an essential, low-cost schematic fix. We desperately need him to mitigate the disaster of having Odeyingbo glued to the roster. If we hand him a 1-year deal for that cheap price, we instantly get a hardened veteran rotational piece. That buys the front office time to find a long-term answer. You need veterans who have actually held the Lombardi Trophy. Van Noy brings immediate, cheap credibility. Shuffling cash to fit a $4.5 million cap hit for a proven closer is the exact low-risk arbitrage move Poles has to make. Nobody's sitting here saying a 35-year-old Van Noy is the future of the franchise. That's crazy. But Leeming's take is dead on. If you put him in a highly specific role, manage a snap count, and let him pin his ears back on passing downs, he's still a massive threat. We don't have many options. We're already burning cash on an injured player who barely played last year. Adding a dirt-cheap situational killer is exactly the kind of move Chicago has to make. The front office has been shuffling the deck all offseason. For the most part, we know what this team's going to look like. But that edge rusher spot, it's a massive unfinished puzzle. You can't roll into week 1 carrying the same liabilities that failed last year. We need a cold, calculated answer on the edge. If you want the brutal truth about the Bears roster moves without the media spin, hit subscribe. We track the money and the film right here. Let's get it done.